Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's our fourth hour of 4 hours of morning radio brilliance, if I dare say. And if you missed any of our first 3 hours, please subscribe and download to our podcast, because there's no reason to miss anything these days. You can't get enough of O'Connor and Company. I know I can't, Julie Gunlock, right? Right? Am I right?
Right. Good morning.
You know what?
What?
We rehearsed this multiple times. You need to sound a little sincere when you say that.
Sorry.
Sounds
Good morning,
spontaneous and natural. Ugh. All right, coming up, we'll give you more play-by-play of Trump at McDonald's. This is one of the most remarkable campaign moments I've ever seen. But joining us right now is Maryland State Senator Justin Reedy to give us an update on the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project. Senator Reedy, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this is, quickly summarize exactly what the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project is with regard to the what it's going to do and what concerns are being raised right now about it.
Yeah, so this is a project to run a 70-mile high-powered electric line through northern Baltimore County, Carroll County, and down into southern Frederick County. And the purpose of it, it's been ordered by the grid operator, PJM, which manages the electric grid that covers parts of 13 states, including Northern Virginia, Maryland, D.C., large parts of Pennsylvania, and some actually some more central states as well. And it's because the PJM is responsible for managing an electric grid, and their claim is that, and they're actually not wrong about this, Maryland is now reaching a point where we are importing a large percentage, not a majority, but a large percentage of our electricity from other states on the grid. And so there's a need to install more infrastructure in Maryland to import more and to strengthen the grid so that there are not blackouts. That is what they say. They are right that we import way too much electricity. The reasons for that I could get into momentarily. It will shock you to learn it's mostly stupid climate policies that are why this is happening.
Yes.
But
not shocked at all.
And so this 70-mile line is actually the first phase of what will probably be several other electric lines in other parts of Maryland. So your listeners, and of course I know Frederick County in particular, you have a lot of listeners, but listeners that may be listening in other parts of Maryland, there are other lines that may have to be run as well. The difference between those and this line is literally taking up 70 miles of largely pristine farmland, wetland, parks, and it's running across, it's basically pillaging all the way across 70 miles of this territory. And then to top it all off, we now know we will get the residents of the three-county area, and frankly the residents of Maryland will get basically none of the energy. It's coming from a nuclear plant in southern Pennsylvania, and it's going to a plant in Frederick, southern Frederick County, but it's largely going to feed data centers in northern Virginia. So that's the real piece, the resistance of the whole thing is that you're like, we're going to rape and pillage we're a huge agricultural area, and you're not going to get any of this energy. Now they'll say, "Oh no, it's about stabilizing the grid, and these other lines will do other things."
But it's stabilizing the grid but the stabilization of that grid is threatened because of all of the data centers that we've seen in Prince William County and Loudoun County in northern Virginia, and so to restabilize it, you've got to do this.
Yes, and the fact that Maryland, part of the reason this entire project is looming is because Maryland has had over 30 power plants close in the last several years and not replace them with anything because those plants were the dirty coal plants or natural gas plants. And we
can't have that.
No. So it's funny because coal is, there are pros and cons to coal, although coal burns pretty clean now, the way that the technology is advanced to where you burn it pretty clean. But if you don't like coal, natural gas is a great substitute, but they don't want that either. And we haven't built any new nuclear power plants, which is really the solution to all of this problem.
And Senator Reedy, last I checked, sending a 70-foot high-power transmission line, 70-mile high-power transmission line through beautiful, untouched rural areas, as you've described, that used to be an environmental concern. Why is that not an environmental concern?
Well, it certainly is. It's interesting. We have had it's a concern to the people who care about the environment in our three counties, and we're trying to get more attention on this and get more help from other leaders who care about the environment. We've actually had some bipartisan support, and actually there are some environmental groups that have gotten engaged on this. But the problem is the larger sort of Sierra Club environmental far left groups, they've decided the climate's the only thing about the environment they care about. And so that's why Maryland does not have an energy policy strategy. The governor wants to electrify, gives all electric cars by 2035. They want to electrify everything, but we don't have the grid. We don't have the grid that can handle it. And what we really need is we need a combination of all on solar and wind. There's a lot of subsidization and prioritization for solar and wind, but solar and wind, whether you like them or don't like them, they're intermittent, and they're also heavily expensive without subsidy. But you can go for some wind. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense in most parts of Maryland. Solar, there's some benefit to it, but you got to have more reliable forms of energy like natural gas and nuclear. And so that's our challenge, is trying to roll back some of these state policies that have kept us from being able to really replace these aging power plants.
Senator, my father actually worked at Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plant several decades ago in southern Maryland. It opened in 1975, and it generates 40% of the energy produced in Maryland. 80% of the clean energy generated in the state comes from nuclear power. And you mentioned earlier there's no plans to expand or to build any new plants in Maryland. Why not? And what is it the activists? Are there any politicians that are championing this? Because that really is the cleanest and best source of energy. I know activists, complain about it they invoke 3 Mile Island, but is there any appetite for expanding that power source?
Well, the appetite, I think, is growing because the reasonable people who I don't agree with on climate radicalism, but there are people on that side of it that understand that, wait a minute, we've got to have more reliable sources. And so I think the excuse you always hear about nuclear is, well, it's going to take many years to do a nuclear plant. It's like, okay, well, if we had started when you guys started all of this stuff, we would have one. And there's actually some interesting new technology coming online that will allow for smaller site nuclear, which is still, they say a few years away. I think we need to really push the gas pedal down on that. As far as this MPRP line, though, what we're really trying to make sure is clear. It goes to the Public Service Commission, and allegedly they can't really say no. They can only modify unless they have some very strict reasons that they can reject this project. But we believe Governor Moore needs to engage fully with the people he's appointed at the PSC, because he appoints the PSC. We have gotten, as I said, there's been some bipartisan support to put a stop to this locally. But local officials, we all are certainly raising objections, and we are trying to testify and get stuff before the PSC. But we really need the governor of the state to engage. And it's come up in the U.S. Senate race because Larry Hogan is against it and willing to take action at the federal level, and Angela Alsobrooks is silent on it. So it's a federal, state, and local issue.
As you said, Senator Reedy, really this boils down to the fact that this governor and this state government have no real power policy and plan for the state of Maryland. Yet at the same time, they wish to convert everybody to electric cars. That's unsustainable, if I may use the unsustainable phrase. Yes. I know that's the left's favorite one. As it continues to be debated, what do you want people to do to have their voices be heard? Because it is remarkable when you tell me exactly where this is going. It's funny how it never goes through, Prince George's County. It never goes through Tacoma Park. It never goes through Potomac, right? It's always in these areas where they don't. It's all the voters that aren't quite as elite, that they don't worry about their pristine landscape.
It's true. I think that, number one, if this goes through, there's other stuff coming that's going to start going through the Baltimore area. So I think I've tried to tell some of my colleagues, hey, this is coming to you next. So the thing is, there's more infrastructure already in place there. So this is really bad because they're basically plopping something where there is very little infrastructure. We actually believe there are some options they could use even that would make it not as intrusive, but not to get in the weeds with you. As far as what people can do, if you are impacted by this, if you live in these communities, you care about preserving open land and agricultural land and wetlands for that matter, people can actually go to the Public Service Commission and file and email and get on the record opposing this project, explaining why, particularly if you own property on, in and around the line. But even if you don't, even if you just live in the area, your voice really matters on this. There's a great group called Stop MPRP that you can find online. With their website is stopmprp.org, and they have a Facebook page. And I would encourage people, that's a great way to plug in if you want to help with lending your voice to trying to stop this from happening.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We got to leave it there, but thank you for informing us and getting us up to speed on this, and we'll keep following it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for covering it. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
That's Senator Justin Reedy of Maryland.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
It was a pretty happy place in the suburbs of Philadelphia yesterday when Donald Trump got his official training on his first day as a fry cook at McDonald's. 15 minutes in, he said that, well, you'll hear it cut 46A if we could. Here's Donald Trump's proclamation after being trained up on the French fries.
Now I have worked at McDonald's. I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala.
Are you going to put this on your resume?
I never worked here.
I've worked here 15 minutes more than Kamala. There you go. This, of course, all started because Drew Barrymore's show suggested and Kamala Harris claimed that she worked at a McDonald's. Free Beacon investigative reporters, getting to the bottom of these things as only our friends at the Free Beacon can, discovered that McDonald's has no record of Kamala Harris ever working at a McDonald's. That didn't stop her. She still continues to claim it. But, you know, you would think it would be really easy. It's like, yes, this is the McDonald's I worked at. These are the years I worked there. These are the months I worked there. But nobody, not one person remembers her working there. So Trump sort of trolled.
And when you consider that how the media obsesses about every little thing that Trump says, every little thing has to have a major investigation, 3 reporters assigned to the story. And these are little, minor things. And the fact that Kamala, in trying to appeal to working class men and women in this country, then lies about it, just like Tim Walz lied about his service, lied about his role on that coaching staff, on that coaching in high school, lied about multiple his wife's use.
How about going to war?
Going to war and their use of IVF. I mean, this is a pattern in the with the Kamala and Walz, and the media is not curious.
But what turned into kind of a photo op troll actually turned into, I think, a stunning, warm-hearted, feel-good, positive photo op for Donald Trump. As the McDonald's was shut down, they brought in staff for the day. It was all shut down and cleared for Secret Service. He's there. He gets trained up. He looks great. He's got the white dress shirt, the red tie, and then the McDonald's apron. He's making fries, and then they put him on the drive-through window to serve the food.
And of course,
everybody who was coming by had already been screened by Secret Service, and there was 1,000 people out there watching, and I keep saying they have dehumanized this man to such a point where he is such a villain and such an ogre and such a monster. And when he does things like this, it does more than humanize him. It actually, I jokingly, only half jokingly said that they have turned, when he does things like this, he's like Reagan. Yes. And I'm not saying, please don't go nuts about the Reagan comparisons, but in terms of imagery, in terms of positive feel-good moments, there really is a disconnect in this country for people who loathe him no matter what he does, and other people who love him no matter what he does. But then there's some of us in the middle who is like, yeah, I understand why people don't like him, but then he does something like this, and it's like you can't help but feel good about it.
He actually is really nice and polite and genuine with people when he talks to them. He's charming and kind. At one point, I know we have the clip, but one of the people coming through the drive-through said, thanks for making it possible for ordinary Americans. He used the word ordinary Americans, and Trump immediately said, "You're not ordinary. You're not ordinary."
Yeah, listen to this. It's cut 50. This is a gentleman of Indian descent here.
I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again. Thank you. Look at that.
Mr.
Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so much for everything you're doing.
I can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Did you hear his wife?
Yeah.
His wife, thank you for taking a bullet for us. And clearly no one had informed this a couple of Indian descent of what a racist and white supremacist nationalist Donald Trump is. Haven't they heard about the Proud Boys? And here's another. This is a woman from Brazil with her amazing family. Listen to this. Cut 49, Michael.
A lot of fun here, everybody.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Look at all the fake news over there. Hello, everybody.
Look at all the fake news over there.
And you know this is compliments of Trump, okay?
Yes, thank you. Mr. President,
Yes.
please don't let the United States become Brazil, my native Brazil.
We'll keep it good.
Please.
We're going to make it better than ever, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Mr.
Can I just
President.
play it real fast because you need to hear again? I'm talking about the disconnect in this country. Listen to MSNBC cover this in Cut 51. And how
If
they
you're
cover
on his campaign, and I know you are certainly not, I'm not making any implication of that, but what is the logic behind this? Going to a McDonald's? I mean, we know the guy likes Big Macs and filet of fish, and he's used the word love to describe the way he feels about the food there before. But what's this about?
Wait, pause that. Did you hear the disdain, the sneering down her nose? I know he loves the food at McDonald's.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get caught dead there myself.
Yeah. Ew.
Right? Go ahead and play a
Such
little more.
snobs.
What's this about?
What is this about?
There's no logic to it. It's a stunt. He has not put forth an economic agenda.
Oh, all right, fine. And they go on. She spends like a minute and a half talking. It's just of course it's a stunt.
I know. Oh,
So what?
Thank you for telling us. I thought he actually went and asked for an application and then got a job and got an apron and then they put him in charge of the drive-through. Like, I didn't think it was I am so shocked to learn it's a stunt. You know what? Honestly, I hope they keep going because it shows how humorless and how rude and how snotty they are, that they think they turn their nose down at people who go to McDonald's and who would work at McDonald's.
Let me tell you something. This is a brilliant move, and my understanding from my friends who are connected to the campaign, I want to say they work on the campaign, this was all his idea. Ugh. He came up with the idea, and he's just latched onto it and says, we're doing it. Amazing. 8:24.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
8:36 now. Coming up, Chris Plant in 30 minutes. Julie Gunlock with Larry O'Connor here on this Monday edition of O'Connor and Company. And there's your Lizzo fix for the day. Julie's got it in her contract. We got to play a little Lizzo.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Every morning. Yeah.
You were...
While Donald Trump
ridiculous.
was working the fry line at a McDonald's and buying everybody their Happy Meals as they came through the drive-thru, Kamala Harris also tried to reach out to middle-of-the-road voters who haven't quite made up their decision for the presidential election. And unlike Trump, who decided that the way to a voter's heart is through a quarter-pounder, she decided to use Lizzo.
Oh my God, no,
Oh,
thank
you are
you.
so wonderful.
Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
You're fighting for democracy for this country. I know it's hard, but you're so close. You're almost there.
Yeah.
I know it's hard. Oh, what you're doing is so hard. Running for...
We will, sis.
Okay.
Yeah, we will, sis. Okay, so there you go. You're saving democracy. That's my president. And then she goes out onto the stage. And by the way, the sign behind her, it had all these like they were meant to look like handmade signs, but they were professionally done. And it says, this is in Detroit. Lizzo's from Detroit. It says, it's about Madame Time. Get it? It's about Madame Time. Yeah, Madame Time. Here's Lizzo's message to all of America about what a Kamala Harris presidency might look like.
I'm so proud to be from this city. You know, they say if Kamala wins, then the whole country will be like Detroit. Okay? Proud like Detroit. Resilient like Detroit.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we mean.
Yeah, and also private jet traveling Lizzo. When she goes back to Detroit, she probably has quite a lot of security keeping her safe. I don't think the average person is able to afford that.
In Georgia, Usher showed up for Kamala Harris. But didn't Usher introduce Justin Bieber to Diddy? Isn't he sort of embroiled in all that?
He's all embroiled in that, yeah.
And then at a rally, while Kamala Harris was speaking, she was talking about abortion, as she does. And somebody in the crowd shouted, "Jesus is Lord." Listen to what happened.
With the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
Wow.
Okay, so they say Jesus. Now, some people are trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, saying she didn't hear that they said Jesus is Lord. They just knew that they were speaking out against her abortion stance. But either way, the fact that the message "you're in the wrong" rally really resonates, doesn't it? In terms of whether you believe Jesus is Lord or whether you think a baby should be protected in the womb. Either way, you're not welcome here.
Yes. You are not welcome here. And I do just really quickly want to go back, and I just was Googling it. But Usher is at the heart of the P. Diddy scandal. And
yeah, that's what I thought.
He had something to do with Justin Bieber and like handing Justin Bieber over to P. Diddy for like 24 hours. Or 48 hours. Anyway, so she really picks nice people to surround herself with.
At another rally this weekend, somebody started heckling her, saying that Israel is guilty of genocide. And they quieted him up, but Kamala then said, listen, he has the right to protest, and what he's saying is real, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. In other words, seemingly taking the side of the person who said Israel's responsible for genocide.
Oh, remember, she didn't want to go into Rafah. She didn't really want Israel to take a strong stand against Hamas and Hezbollah. She has been weak on this issue, so no doubt she agrees.
And then finally, I think her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, finally had a moment of real, genuine honesty on the campaign trail, speaking on behalf of all of us who have witnessed the Harris-Walz campaign over the last several months.
You know what? When my mom looks for that Social Security deposit to be made in her bank account...
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a different clip, but this is a good one, too. This is Tim Walz, who, by the way, is net worth well over $1 million. Speaking about his mother's reliance on Social Security. Here, listen.
You know what? When my mom looks for that Social Security deposit to be made in her bank account, that's how she's going to feed herself. That's how she's going to get things done. He doesn't give a damn if his Social Security check comes or not. So let's be very clear. If any of our relatives or anyone gives us this, if they tell us, will Donald Trump's understand us?
Hold on. So his mother will starve if she doesn't get her Social Security check?
He has a really bad record on his mother. Remember, she had to be all by herself during COVID because he didn't want to be near her. I mean, there was some sort of story about that, about not wanting to be near her because she could infect them. So he left his poor mother alone for months. Not a nice guy. Not a nice guy.
All right. And then finally, this is, do we have the other Tim Walz? Hang on. I've got one more Tim Walz here that I think is really instructive. And like I said, I think he speaks for all of us here when after witnessing their campaign, and you'll hear it in just a moment. It's 8:43.
WMAL, making sense of the border, because laws either matter or they don't. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
All right, Julia, let's wrap up this crazy weekend in terms of the presidential campaigns. We just told you what Lizzo was doing for Kamala, and Usher, the Diddy suspect in the whole Georgia thing. That's how they approached it, right? And by the way, they keep telling us that Trump is, what's the new message they're trying to do? Trump's exhausted. He's canceling events. He's lost his step. He's fatigued. He's too old. Here, Greg Price lays out his day yesterday. He started the morning with the Howie Carr interview, a talk show host out of Boston. Then he did a shift at the McDonald's in Philly. Then he did an hour-plus long town hall in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then he ended at the Steelers game, which was an 8:30 kickoff, with the crowd screaming USA, USA when they saw him on the widescreen. That's a pretty full day. You know what what Kamala did yesterday?
What'd she do?
A 15-minute appearance, and that was it in the afternoon. Meanwhile, her running mate really, I think, speaks for all of us with this little moment. This was yesterday at a church.
Look, I know many people of you say I'm tired of this. Trust me, I am too. We're fatigued. We're fatigued from it.
Oh, God.
This guy's been campaigning for 2 months.
Good God.
He's done. He's fatigued. And I leave you with this. We've been talking about the McDonald's appearance. Look at how CBS Morning News addressed the Trump at McDonald's story.
Thank you very much.
It capped off a day of campaign stops.
And I've always wanted to work at McDonald's.
That included a visit to a McDonald's, closed just for him, where he tried scoring political points after claiming without any evidence that Vice President Harris didn't once work at the fast food chain while in college.
She never worked at McDonald's.
She says she did.
So, did you
prove us wrong? Yeah.
So, Trump Trump claims without evidence that she never worked at McDonald's. Right. But she claims she did.
So that's enough. That's enough for us. Right.
Stop
Done.
lying. Stop lying about her. Where's the she says without evidence that she did?
Right.
What?
And also, why don't you follow up? Because of this, we called McDonald's and tried to ask for some employment records.
Julie, I'm so sorry. You weren't paying attention. This was CBS News. It's 8:52. Julie Gunlock, we'll see you tomorrow. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm hungry for McDonald's. Chris Plant, that was quite a photo op there, wasn't it, that McDonald's situation?
It was really more than a photo op, wasn't it? It was so much more.
How do you not? Honestly, I was mesmerized by all the videos coming out of that, and we really do live in two different countries sometimes when you look at how people react to that moment of Trump at a McDonald's.
We do, and then Lizzo. I heard you playing Lizzo, and in their country, they ain't nothing but bitches and hoes.
Well, I mean,
that's a vote they have locked up, though. I don't know why they're still pushing for that. They've got
that's the weird thing. No swing state. Although that was going to be the name of the campaign, wasn't it? Instead of Harris Walz.
I think it ought to be their bumper sticker. They should have T-shirts.